Okay. All right. So in the last class, we were able to look at what cloud computing is. We are also able to look at stuff around different types that we have. Then look at the private cloud, the public cloud, and the hybrid cloud. Then we are also able to look at things around the cost, the capex and opex. Then from there, the cloud benefits as well. We look at different cloud models, the capital expenditure. So today we'll be jumping into the cloud service type that we have basically.
Okay.
So basically what we're going to look in this is to look at, I want to describe infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. Then we'll describe the shared responsibility model. Then we try to identify the appropriate use case for each of the cloud services. So infrastructure as a service. When you hear the word infrastructure, what comes to your mind when you hear the word infrastructure?
Maybe setting up is like structure.
Okay.
I said like structure hardware.
Okay. Okay. So when you talk about infrastructure as a service, basically, or infrastructure as a service, you actually is a type of cloud service that is actually, it has more responsibility on you. It's actually the most flexible category of the cloud service type that we have. And because it provides you with the maximum amount of control for your cloud resources. So in infrastructure as a service, which you call IaaS model, basically the cloud provider is responsible for maintaining the hardware, network connectivity to the internet, and the physical security. Because in infrastructure, what you are responsible for is for everything else apart from the hardware, the network connectivity, and the physical security, because you don't co-locate with the cloud service provider. They have the data center where they've set up the hardware, the network connectivity, and they're responsible for the security. But the only thing you as customer you're responsible for is operating system installation, configuration, maintenance, even your network configuration inside the operating system. Then if you're going to use database and storage, you'll be responsible for database and storage also. And essentially, the infrastructure as a service model, what it's doing is that you are renting the hardware in the cloud data center. So what you do with the hardware is up to you. So for example, now you can decide, okay, let me spin up a Windows server, right? When you're spinning up a Windows server, the hardware, the operating system you want to use in the server, you're responsible for it. You're saying, okay, I want this server to have a Windows Server 2012 or 2016 or 2019. Okay, I want to host application on the server. So those are your responsibility. You don't have to worry about the data center. You don't have to worry about the networking, the firewall, the security of those hardware itself. But what you're worried about is those things I've mentioned, which are the operating system, installation, configuration, maintenance, the network configuration in the operating system itself, basically. And so storage as well, networking, operating system. So those are the things that are actually what you are responsible for,
So
basically.
if one is responsible for the storage,
Yeah.
the I think that's what the hardware should have done. That should be the
O-
service of the that's the part of the work of the service
Okay,
provider.
the storage I mean in the sense that, okay, the which of the size of the, let's say you need a virtual machine, for example. Now, what is the size of the virtual machine? The storage, you understand? The you can spin up a virtual machine that should have or maybe 126 SSD or 256 or 128, 256 or even 512, SSD. So those storage, you're the one that will determine it, and that's what you're responsible for. The storage on those particular the configuration of the storage, not the storage infrastructure itself. The storage
Oh,
infrastructure is the cloud provider that is responsible for it. But how you want to use the storage, the configuration, that's what you're responsible for. The database and the storage configuration. You want the storage to have a particular, maybe the database that should be on the storage should be either a MySQL database or any other databases. It's those configuration you're responsible for. But everything you can see in the slide, the servers and storage itself, the physical hardware, that's the server, the physical storage in the data center. The cloud service provider is responsible for it. The networking in the data center, configuration of the firewall and the security in the data center. The cloud service provider is responsible for it. Then the data center physical security, the building itself, they are responsible for it. But you as a customer, you're only responsible for every other thing outside those things, every other thing like the operating system. You are renting the device, like you're renting the server from them. But by default, they're not the one that will tell you, oh, this is what you should put on the server. You're the one that you know what you want the server to do, right? You determine, okay, I want a Windows server or I want a Linux server, right? So you're the one that is putting the operating system on the server. You're renting the server, right? But the configuration itself, which is operating system installation and configuration, you'll be the one that will do that as a customer. Then the maintenance of it, maybe it's a Windows servers, for example, now to keep it up to date, you're responsible for that. Then the network configuration on the server, maybe the networking of your resources to maybe you have a site-to-site VPN you want to connect. Under networking, we'll talk more about that. So you're responsible for configuration of those networking, but the physical networking that is in the data center, it is the cloud service provider that is responsible. Why the networking of how you want your network to be, maybe how your application should speak to other applications and all that. Those are the ones that you're responsible for, the configuration part. The same thing with the database and storage configuration and so on. But those physical things, anything that have to do with the physical device itself, for the cloud computing, remember, you're only going from your own device to remote into the Azure portal. And from there, you're able to basically get access to the cloud computing device. So be it could be a storage device, a networking device, or either a compute device. I don't know if that's clear.
yes.
All right. So the next one is platform as a service. Now, if you see from here, for the infrastructure as a service, the cloud service provider is responsible for the server, the networking, and the data center. For platform as a service now, the cloud service provider are also responsible for the operating system, then any developmental tools, the database management, that's different between the two. So they go to an extent of operating system because you just want to use a platform. Like basically for platform as a service, it provides an environment for building, testing, and deploying software applications. So without focusing on the underlying infrastructure. So you as a developer, what you're just focused on is I just want to deploy my application, right? I don't want to know what the operating system should be. I don't want to disturb myself about the environment itself. Mine is just I just want to I want to deploy the application. So like the platform is like a middle ground in the sense that you're renting a space in the data center, that's infrastructure as a service, and you're paying for a complete and a deployed solution, which is like a software as a service. So in a past environment, the cloud service provider maintain the physical infrastructure, the physical security, the connection to the internet. They also maintain the operating system, any middleware at all, developmental tools, the business intelligence services that makes up the cloud solution. The cloud service provider are responsible for that. So beyond just the data center, the networking, and the servers and storage, they go on to also be responsible for the operating system and the development tools, the database management, as well as the business analytic tools as well. So those are the things they manage in this type of cloud service. So the infrastructure
So that,
maintains your server, network, and data center. Yeah, ask a question, please.
so that means the cost of platform as a service be more than infrastructure as a service?
Well, it all
The
depends,
cost.
but the cost, no, you're paying more in terms of infrastructure, right? You're paying more. Well, by the
So
time we
I think you
see
should
an
pay more
example,
in terms of. I think you should pay more in terms of platform, because platform you have more services given to
okay,
you than infrastructure.
okay, let me give you example of each of these two, right? In infrastructure, you have a virtual machine.
Mhm.
You have a whole virtual machine for yourself in which you want to deploy the application. The cost for a virtual machine is higher compared to maybe you want to use a platform like Azure Functions. Why did I say that? Azure Function, maybe you have an application that needs to run some functions, for example, now, right? It is only, you're only paying once the function runs. If you remember, you're renting and you only pay. If you remember our consumption model, you only pay for
Yeah.
what is used, right? Now,
Mm.
at a platform level, you are not even deploying servers. You're not deploying anything. You just want to use a function like is a particular service as a platform. It could be yeah, maybe MySQL database or something. Now at that point, you're not paying heavily for infrastructure like for every virtual machines you deploy, you pay for the storage, you pay for the depending on the compute capacity, maybe the speed or the RAM and all that. But at platform level, you are not paying for any of those because you're just telling the Microsoft or the cloud service provider that I don't want to use IaaS. I don't need, it's just an application to just do one or two things, right? So they just provide the environment. Okay, for this application you want to deploy, this is the best operating system. This is this. So they provision everything. So there are applications that all these things are already been provisioned once on the Azure portal. Once we go into the Azure portal, I will show you the different services that falls under infrastructure, platform, and the software. So at this point now, you are not paying for any of these underlying infrastructure. Imagine just look at it as everything like this is being grouped as one, right? They are coming together at this level. It's just like, okay, I want to use my let me say I want to use my Gmail, for example. My Gmail have it for free. Why? Because it is software as a service. So except if I need more storage, our Gmail comes by default with 15 gigabytes. So if I need more storage, maybe I'm using it a lot, and a lot of people are sending me data and things to store. I'm using my the Google Drive that is connected to the Gmail. I need more storage. That's when I pay. But so long I can maintain within that 15 gigabytes of storage, I don't have to pay anything to Google. So the software as a service is pay as you go if you need more space. Like in our Microsoft 365, for example, now for email system, Exchange Online, for example, now maybe I need 50 gig of a business email for Exchange Online plan one, for example. Now that's about I think $4, right, per user per month for Exchange Online. For that scenario now, I only pay for that $4 per user per month. Now, compare with maybe I need to now build in my own Exchange servers, right? Buy server from Microsoft, get the Windows servers, get the Exchange servers, install on the Windows servers, and do all those things. I'll be paying more because the cost of the server, the licenses for the Exchange server is higher compared to the Exchange Online, the $4 that I'm paying per user per month. So at this point, you're paying less actually for platform. You're paying less because if your function just run, that's when you pay. I can even pay as low as maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 cents because you just want to run a code. You don't need to set up your own virtualization environment. You just want to run the code. So they just give you a platform like something like Azure Functions for you to run the code. And once the thing is wrong, it's done running, you don't pay again. It's only at the point when the thing runs that you're gonna pay. But once it doesn't run again, you don't pay again. So that's actually the difference between them. So for as a cloud service, as the responsibility shifts to the cloud service provider, you're actually paying less because you're going to look at a share responsibility model, which actually compare these three cloud service provider. We'll be able to compare, okay, what is cloud service provider responsible for Me as a customer, what am I responsible for? Now, the third one, which is a software as a service. For software as a service, it is actually like the most complete cloud service model for from a product perspective. Why? Because with SaaS, you are essentially renting or using a fully
Almost
developed
everything.
applications. Yes, like the example I gave in emails, for example, now, a financial services, a messaging applications, even a connectivity software, they are all common examples. So if I want to use maybe a cloud service like let's say Sage, for example, for finances or QuickBooks, they have the cloud and the on-prem. I only pay for the subscriptions. I pay as it goes. So I don't need to actually, if I stop using it, I stop paying immediately. So something like the Microsoft 365, for example, now emails, calendar, and all that, that comes with the Exchange Online plan. I only pay per month. The month I don't want to use email again, I stop paying, right? So it's as cheap as that. Let's go next to the share responsibility model. Now, for our share responsibility model, if you check the color code, the light blue here talks about what the cloud service provider, in our case, Microsoft, is responsible for. Why the deep blue is talking about what we as a customer we are responsible for. Then this is for shared, where both of us share the responsibility. So what is actually the shared responsibility model? Now, for shared responsibility model, basically it talks about what I am responsible for, what a Microsoft is responsible for, or the cloud service provider, what they are basically responsible for. So like if you start with a traditional corporate data center, the company is responsible for maintaining the physical space, ensuring security, and maintaining or replacing servers. So if anything happen, and the IT department of that company is responsible for maintaining all the infrastructure and software needed to keep this data center up and running. So they are also likely to be responsible for keeping all system patched on, or for them to be on the current version, basically. But with share responsibility model, this responsibility gets shared between the cloud provider and the customer. So the physical security, the power, the cooling, even the network connectivity, they are responsibility of the cloud provider. In where I work in my organization, we run on a hybrid model. We have a physical data center and we use the cloud service. In fact, we use multi-cloud, we use the Azure, we use the AWS, right? Now, for all applications that are hosted locally on our physical server, our data center is running 24 hours. There's power, there's cooling. Imagine paying so much for the advantage of that. We look at that when we talk about the hybrid model. You have control in terms of governance, compliance, and all that. So for organizations that are just fully on-prem, for example, now they are responsible for everything, for physical data center, the networking of it, the physical host, the operating system, network control, the applications, even the identity and directory infrastructures, accounts and identities, the devices, both mobile and PCs, even the informations and data, they are responsible for those ones. Now, for in terms of infrastructure as a service, which is IaaS, so the cloud service provider, which is Microsoft, they are responsible for the physical host, that's the security of the data center itself, the physical networks, then the physical device itself, both storage devices that they have, the compute, the servers, and different operating system there. Then the physical data center itself, they are responsible for that. That's for their own shared part. Now, for in terms of parts, for example, now the the cloud service provider is responsible for everything to physical or even to operating system. Now, at the point of network control, so depending on the, because you have the opportunity when we discuss networking in Azure, you have the opportunity to control some part of your networking. So it is shared between you and Microsoft. The same thing goes for the applications and the identity and directory infrastructure, because both of you have to share that particular responsibility. Then for the SaaS, which is a software as a service, the the cloud service provider is responsible for everything to your application here. Then at identity and directory infrastructure level, both of it shared, but every other thing from account identity, device, information, and data, you are responsible for it. So what it means in essence is that as a customer, you are responsible for your information and your data to ensure that Nobody can access to those data. You're responsible for all your devices, be it mobile, the PCs that you have. You're also responsible for your accounts and your identity. So if you want to bring in external users to the tenants, you are responsible for that. But for every other thing, the Microsoft is actually responsible for them.
Responsible.
Yeah. So that's actually the summary of what the shared responsibility model is talking about. And if you're going to bring it to our different services, like I mentioned again, for IaaS, you have for on-prem, the on-prem one, you have as a customer, you have the control of everything. That
Responsible
means
for
you're
everything.
responsible for
Yeah,
everything. So
everything.
nobody's coming to
That'll
save
be
you.
very
So if there's
costly.
any yeah. So if there's any issue, you have to find guys that are very good. IT departments, guys that are very good to actually. I mean, in fact, most organizations that are spending a lot, like my organization now, we have a team, a network team different from the compute and storage team, then different from the data center team. So they all work together as infrastructure services. So all the team come together to ensure that the data center is up and running. So in some scenarios, like common scenarios where infrastructure and infrastructure as a service actually might make sense. Something about lift and shift migration. For example, now maybe you have some servers that are on-prem. So there's what called lift and shift migration, where you just want to ship those servers directly to Azure. So like you're standing on a cloud resource similar to your on-prem data center. Then what you just simply do is that you can move things running on your on-prem and just move them directly to infrastructure. That's where the infrastructure is actually as a better scenario. Then in terms of testing and development, you have an established configuration for development and a test environment that you need to actually rapidly replicate. So you already have a server that okay, this is all the configuration of the server. So you need to rapidly replicate the same configuration for your testing and development environment. So you can just stand up, you shut down the different environments rapidly. Then with the infrastructure as a service, you can easily maintain control of that environment. Then for platform as a service, one of some scenarios that are very common, maybe you have a development framework like the PaaS provide a framework that developers can build upon to develop or customize clouds and based application similar to the way you can create maybe your an Excel macros. So the platform as a service lets you let developers actually create applications. So using built-in software components already. And it's the cloud features such as scalability, high availability, and even multi-tenant capability are included. So it's reduced the amount of coding that developers must do. So they already have the environment like the VS Code that Microsoft actually do. Then in terms of another scenario is the analytics and business intelligence. So already tools are provided as a service with PaaS to allow organizations to analyze, then mine their data, then finding insights and patterns, and also predicting outcomes to improve their forecasting, product design decision, even investment return and other business decision as well. So that's two scenario in which the platform as service is actually relevant. Then if you talk about the software as a service, two scenarios are the common one are the emails and messaging. For example, now I just need an email. I don't want to stress myself to start setting up Exchange servers for messaging, those complex stuff. Just buy, I can buy as low as just exchange your line plan one with 50 gig or exchange your line plan two with 100 gig. And I have my emails and messaging off my running. I can just start sending emails to my customers, my clients, without worrying about the underlying infrastructure of how the Exchange server actually work. Then for business productivity applications to like my organizations, we use the Microsoft application more, like the Microsoft Teams, the SharePoint, the OneDrive, every other business productivity applications like the Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I don't have to worry about what is actually making those things to run. Mine is to just launch the Microsoft Word. Mine is now I'm presenting with the Microsoft PowerPoint, for example. Now I don't know how the application was built, how the code was developed, and all that, how it's working. But mine, I just know that okay, with the PowerPoint, I'm able to just mine just to use the applications. Then if you look at the finance and expense tracking also using the Microsoft Excel, for example, now mine is just to bring in the data, then I can use the Excel to analyze the data. I don't have to worry about what is making even this application to work, basically. So those are the common scenarios for each of those services. So if you had to compare them, for IaaS is the most flexible cloud service. You configure and manage the hardware for your application. So that's what you do. You just configure and manage it. While the PaaS focus on application development, basically. So for platform management is handled by the cloud provider. For the SaaS, you pay as you go. It's a pay as you go pricing model. You just pay for the subscription, and you are good to use the application or the service for that particular period. Maybe we pay for 1 month or 1 year. Then for SaaS again, users pay for the software they use on the subscription model. All right. So we are done with the first part of our learning series. Do you have any questions so far before we move to the second
Then
part?
SaaS is pay as you go, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I payment for the other one done. You only pay for infrastructure the services they are giving to you.
So
How
for
is the
for
payment done
SaaS
for platform as you go? I mean,
and
platform as a service and infrastructure as a service.
all right, good question. Let me go into the Microsoft Azure quickly for you, so I can explain that. So I'm going to do two things. So this is a different account. Let me see. A moment. Okay, let me bring this here. All right, so at the moment here now, I have my subscriptions. So if you remember for our first, I told you that for you to be able to do anything on Azure, you need to have the subscription here, right? So this is subscription. For this subscription, I can drill down by going into the subscriptions and check, do you have any, so there is cost management. Before I go into that, I want to show you resources. Do you have resources tied to the subscriptions? So this will show me, so the last virtual machine that will provision, right, during our first class, these are all the resources that were provisioned with the virtual machine. The virtual machine itself was provisioned, the public IP address, the NSG, the virtual network was provisioned, the network interface, then the disk, as well as the network quotient. Now, these are all the resources that came with the virtual machines. Now, if these virtual machines is not running, right, the only thing I'll be paying for is the things that are reserved, like the storage. That's for the disk. I'll be paying for the disk, as well as if the IP is reserved, I'll be paying for the IP. So Microsoft will charge for those things. But if the virtual machine is running, every other thing will be charged. Now let's go to cost analysis. So to make it easy for you, the only resource I have, that's the only resource I have for this subscription, right? So to see how Microsoft charges, how Microsoft bills the subscriptions. So if you remember when we started, this was $150. Now it has reduced to $140. So why did it reduce? At the point of provisioning the virtual machines, I configured the virtual machine to auto shut down. So that day that we had our class, by 7 p.m., the virtual machine shut down. It wasn't working. Now, if you check, it shows me that, okay, total, this is the total since I provisioned the virtual machine till now. This is the total
That
amount
con-
that have been consumed. Like I've actually consumed from this, right? So they gave a forecast amount. So based on this amount, Microsoft just give a forecast amount using their machine learning and AI models, right, to forecast. If I go down, I can drill down. What is eating my money? Can you see? Storage. So whether or not the virtual machine is running or not, you continue to pay for that storage, right? Now, for the time that the virtual machine ran before it shut down, this was the amount I pay, some 5 cents. That's what I pay for it. Then for bandwidth, just 0.1 cents, right? Then for the virtual network. So these are the things. So I can drill down further to see, okay, okay, it was the resource group I created that was charged, which was the overall. Then for in terms of intercontinental, for bandwidth, this is where this amount is coming from. And the region that I deployed the virtual machine to, which was US East, it showed me the amount here. So for this infrastructure as a service is once that stuff is running, or for that's why people don't use virtual machines, because even despite I'm not using it, I'm still paying this amount. But if it was platform as a service, for example, now there's not a virtual machine, maybe Azure functions or something like that, it is only when the code run or when I run a function that I'm going to pay.
okay.
That's when I'm going to pay. Now, this is now different from infrastructure for SaaS. For SaaS, for example, now I have to pay monthly. Like, let me see if I can. I'm not sure if this would take me. Let me check if I can sign into any of my accounts. Admin.office.com. I want to show you my SaaS environment to show you how the payment is for the SaaS environments. I hope I remember these accounts. It's been a while that I sign into the accounts. Okay, let me try .com. Hmm. My cloud online.
Nothing.
How I hope they don't remove this account for me, because I'm trying to even remember the credential. Because Microsoft announced that they're going to delete some tenants. I hope they've not deleted the tenant, because I can't remember it. Okay, let me use my normal browser. Let me see if that will work. I shall the password save in the normal browser. Hmm. Okay, let me sign in with this. Let me get the code to authenticate to that. Hmm. I just remember the username of the other accounts. Okay. Okay. So this is a SaaS environment called Microsoft 365. So for this, I have subscriptions. So I've already have an agreement with Microsoft. Okay, I want to be using your subscriptions. This is the total number of seats. If I come to the billing here, then come to my product here. So I have some couple of product here. I'll just use one as an example. Now let's say for this product, for example, this product, I already told Microsoft, okay, for this product, I'm paying, even though this one is free for now, I'm paying so amount. Let me see if I can get a product on this tenant. So let's say I need this product. This product is called Universal Print, for example. Now I'm able to see the price there. So I pay upfront for SaaS products. So once I click on details here and I want to purchase the product, Microsoft would deduct that $40 from my card automatically. So that is
So
per month.
whether you use it or
Whether I
not,
use it or not, Microsoft will deduct it.
the money is gone.
So it's
I get
gone.
you. See,
So per month, yeah. So unlike that's the difference between the infrastructure that
I
is on
get you. I get you.
pay as you go. So that's the difference between the two. Okay, let me pull up. All right. So we're going to the learning part two, talking about the Azure architecture and services. So for here, we'll be looking at Azure architectural components in terms of region, availability zone, subscriptions and resource groups. We'll look at compute and networking, talk about compute types, application hosting, virtual networks. We'll talk about the storage services, redundancy options, the file management and migration. Then we'll look at identity access and security, then the directory services. So one of the stuffs I was advised is to have an Azure account. So we're able to get the Azure accounts the last time that we spoke.
Yeah, I couldn't lie.
You
I've
could,
not been able to do it, because of my project.
yeah,
So I've not
okay,
been able. But I just planned
understood.
after this class now. See tomorrow
Mm,
when I get back home, I'll be
all right,
something
because
about it.
for this they want us to actually, so there's a walkthrough to create an Azure account. So if you don't have a student account, for example, now you can just go to azure.com to create an account. So you can try for free. So the try for free will actually give you $200 credits for 1 month for you to try Azure for 1 month. Then after that, you have to start paying. But if you don't want to try for free, if you click on get started, then get started here. It will tell you to pin, so you have to actually use the dollar card actually. Yeah, for the payments for this. But let me see where this will take me. So it's better to have a personal account, a life account. So since I'm signing with this life account, put a password. Okay, so agree to that. Click on next. So it takes you to payment options where you put your provide a credit card or debit card. So once this is done, put all your informations. If you want to add technical support as well, because some of the services are not free support. Some are free, some are paid support. You'll be able to go, then you sign up. So once you sign up, basically your card is there on the Azure portal. So as you use the service,
You're auto debited.
they'll be debiting you,
Yeah.
and you can always see all your costs in your cost analysis, in your cost managers. And there's this Azure Advisor. Actually, it's actually one of the tools that we use for. So it will advise you on, okay, this resource that you're using. So you use the machine learning to understand your environment. So this particular resource, you're not using it too much. Why not decommission this resource, right? This particular resource, okay, the size of the virtual machine is too high. Why not reduce the size? So it gives you different adversary source so that it can help you
Okay,
to
this
save
side.
your cost. Yes. Then if you need to analyze your cost, maybe you're seeing a lot of spikes in your cost, for example, now you can come to cost analysis. The cost analysis will actually show you, okay, this is where most of the costs are coming from. This is what is making your cost to be high. You'll be able to see your costs under this cost management, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So so there's actually another option. If you don't want to use there's option for the sandbox environment as well. But the sandbox sometimes it takes time to load. Then interactions as well. Okay, I think we have to let me see. So before we go into details here for the core architectural components, let's look at the Azure portal briefly. So for the Azure portal, once you go to portal.azure.com, you sign into your account. It takes you to this home page. Now, the first thing you notice here, so these are some Azure services, shortcut recommended by Microsoft. Then also some of the services, if you have navigated to somewhere in Azure, if you notice, these are places I've gone recently now. So it will actually put them there. If you want to view all services or more services, you click on this arrow by the right here. Now, this three line on the upper left here is actually the menu option. For the menu option, you'll be able to go navigate to different areas. So if you want to create the resources, you can create a resource here. If you want to go back to the home, if you want to see your dashboard, you click on the dashboard. So the menu is actually, so a lot of people like for best practice, it's good to always create a dashboard. Maybe there are things that you want to monitor, your costs and all that. You want to just sign into Azure and where you want it to land is a dashboard. You can actually create dashboard for yourself and put in things that you want to monitor inside the dashboard. Like for example, now, let's say I want to monitor my application insights, for example. I can put the name of the dashboard. Okay. I want to select the subscription scope, which is the one I have. So which of the resource? So it's going to filter. I don't have any resource under subscription. Okay, it's telling me how much rate, how much I have resource. It's probably because the paste subscription is not bringing anything here for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once you create the dashboard, okay, I don't have any resource for an application. That's why. Let me see. Let me pick another option. Let me just create a custom dashboard myself. What I want in my custom dashboard. I want to see all my resource. Can add. I want to see what else. Users in my organizations. So I'm just picking something random. I want to see all the resource groups that I have. I want shortcut to the marketplace. So Can leave that like that, and I can drag it the way any way I want it, the way I want the dashboard to look. I can drag it. Okay. Can save it name. So things I want to keep an eye on when I sign into Azure. So the dashboard. If I want to edit it, I can actually edit it to add more things. Okay. I want to monitor my costing. Let me see. I should have the option for cost. Okay. Must remember to save anything you put in there. Must remember to save. So that's the dashboard. You can delete it if you don't want it. Maybe you're done using the dashboard. You can actually just click on delete it to delete the dashboard for you. So the menu option gives a shortcut to different places you want to go in Azure. Then this search is probably the most things is like the thing we use the most because sometimes you might not want to go through this menu to start looking for stores. Maybe you need a particular something. You can just search for it here. Anything you type, it brings it up for you, and you can click on it to go there. Maybe I want to go to a virtual machine, for example. Now, just type that. I need a storage account. Just type storage. So it's like most of the things, like the search bar is something you're going to use most times, right? During your course. So you can just, then the next thing here is actually our cloud share. So apart from using the Microsoft Azure to manage your resources, so the cloud share provides another means. We're going to talk about the three ways to manage Azure. We're just looking at the overall overview of the Azure environment. So you can manage your resources using PowerShell or using Batch. So if it's a Linux environment, use Batch. If it's a Windows environment, use the PowerShell. So it just come here and you can drag it depending on what you maybe if you like to use a Batch. If you want to connect to PowerShell, for example, just click on PowerShell. So to tell you, you don't want to use your storage, definitely you must be connected to this. You must mount the storage where all your stores will be actually be kept. If you click on apply, it's going to, if you have an existing storage account, it's going to allow you, but it's going to look if there's an existing storage, there is no existing. So because I don't have any existing, so I have to go back to previous and go and create a storage account. So which region do you want to create the storage account? You put a name, put a file share, and you create. So before you can use this, so the storage account is where all those everything you are doing will actually be stored. Basically, this is another important is a notification option. So anything you do, right, is giving notification. Like if you sign in, for example, now I signed in 20 minutes ago, and it's telling me the credit I have left. Then it's something I've already done. I've done the refresh. So you tell me. So it's a notification. So if you want to see more activities, more events, if you click on this, it takes you to the activity logs. We'll be able to see different activities that has happened in the Azure environment. You can select activity as directory activity. You can select, so it tells you things that has happened. You want to select, you can change the hour. If you want to select this, so you can just have different filter as you like. Then the next is the clock settings here. So for the clock settings, you have some settings to the so like the directory and subscriptions. So the first thing we'll notice here under directory and subscription, it tells me which are the directory I have. So if you check, I have 4 directories here. I'm currently in this directory. So it tells me this is the directory I am. How did I get into all this other directory? I've been invited into this tenants. That's why I have the directory. This is one of the Microsoft community tenants. These are my friends' tenants that was invited. Then these are Microsoft student ambassador tenants that receive an invitation. So once you receive such invitation from those tenants, it adds those directly, and you can actually switch. Like if I want to go into a different directory, just for me to just click on switch to the directory. So I'm still signing with the same account, but a different directory.
Right.
That's why it's possible for organizations to collaborate on documents. Organization A can collaborate with organization B. And there's something I wanted you to take note of. In this directory, I don't have access to any subscription. So it's mentioned it that this directory, that means I cannot even do anything in this directory. And if you notice here, this change to Dove, because that was the directory I was. I could also change the directory by clicking on this, my avatar here, and I'll see switch directory. Yeah. So it brings me back to this place. Tells me that this is the current directory I am. So sometimes people used to make this mistake, right? I remember I gave access to somebody to a subscription in this directory. So I thought the person here signing. The person signing, basically I cancel this subscription. I also the person click on this, go and choose your directory and look for the directory that has this my name there. Then switch. When you switch there, you will see that the subscription is there. Subscription can only stay in one directory. You can have access to multiple directory actually, but subscriptions can only stay in one directory. And it tells you that this is my default directory, and I'm back with the directory that has the credits. Now, one of the ways this directory is going to be useful for you is whenever maybe you have a subscription in one directory and you like to move the subscription to another directory, you have the option to do that. You can move subscription from one directory to another, especially if you are the owner of the subscriptions. You can move it from one directory to another. So if you go back, so this is just for us to switch directory. Another thing we can do under this settings here is to see the appearance. So we can change the way this environment look. I can change, okay, let me use, I want a dark theme, for example. Once I apply it now, it's going to change everything. I change the theme to dark theme. Maybe somebody that like coding, that like dark environment. I want to have light, change it back to light. I want blue, change it to blue. I go back to the Azure default themes, right? It takes me back to the way it was before. Then contracts, if I want white, I don't want any of those blue to appear, right? If I want everything to just be black, if I apply it, it's going to appear like that as well. I don't want contrast, I can apply that. So this is where you do your appearance, setup and all that. Then this stuff that is coming in and going out, if I click out now, it goes back in. Like if I want it to stay there, I just select this and apply. It will stay there for me permanently for me. So I don't have to be clicking on that stuff, but I still have the option, this arrow here to hide it, yeah? If maybe I think I feel like it's taking space from my screen, but if I want it completely off here, anytime I'm not using it, I can select the fly out here. Once I apply, it's completely off for me. Now, this is very useful because someone that is not conversant with the Azure environment, right? And is looking for those icons, doesn't know that this button can actually bring, is actually the menu button that can bring those things out. The person not be aware that. But if you like, let me dock it, let it stay there permanently. I have the option to do that as well. Then if you look at the contract, then the startup view, I inform you that this is like the home view now. The dashboard I created, I can make it the home view or the dashboard I have to be the home view. So if I sign into Azure, it's going to take me to dashboard. Once I sign into Azure, this was the dashboard I created, my second dashboard. So it takes me to, if I sign out and sign back in, this is where it's going to take me to from what I've configured there. Let me go back. Then I can change my language and region. Also, if I want to change to another language, I can change it, the region. I can also change the region as well. Then there is another additional information that I want to change here. So it's giving the option for my email address. So how many plan do I want? No, I have the option to play around this basically. Then this question mark is actually for help and support. So maybe you're trying to do something, you don't know how to do it. So you have this as an help, or there's an issue with your applications, there's an issue with your portal, there's an health issue generally. If you want to contact Microsoft, you use this help button, right? So if you say app service not working, for example, app service not working, I click on go. First of all, it's going to bring up some suggested articles from Microsoft and all that. Then if I feel that those stuffs are not giving me the answer that I want, then I can click on create a support request here. So this will actually create a request for Microsoft and Microsoft agents from the Azure team based on the service that you're having issue with. They're going to contact you. So which service are you having issue with? So I have the option to select. Okay. So these are, I can just select any of the services so that it will go to the right team basically, or they can actually help basically. So let's say I'm having issues as I just start click on next. So which subscriptions, the same subscription, which resource, click on next. So gives me some suggested things I can try here. If it doesn't work, just click on create a support request here. So it's going to bring a dashboard to fill in some information, the problem descriptions. Is it a technical issue, billing issue, all the options, the subscriptions, right? Then which services is the one I currently use, or all the services it brings that. You can click on next. So it's still loading this up. So once it load, I select, then the next is to give me a recommended solutions, additional details. Then Microsoft try to empower everyone to be able to resolve their issue first
Take the
themselves before
problem
contacting
themselves.
support.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why they give you a recommended solution based on anything you've selected here. It's going to give you, then you can create the report, the request. Yeah. Then for this, if you want to give feedback to Microsoft about the portal itself or any feedback you want to give to Microsoft, you can, just drop a feedback and the Microsoft teams are looking at the feedback. The next here is your account. For example, things you can do here, you can sign out from the account, you can view your account details, you can switch your directory, and you can even sign if you have other accounts, you can sign into those other accounts. So yeah, that's for the accounts here. So most times switching directory is something I use here. So it takes me to this settings page. I can easily switch the directory to this place. Okay. So those are like the overview of the Azure portal. Yeah. I think I should show you. So Azure has a lot of services. So once you click on all services, you'll be able to see various services that Azure have, like the AI machine learning service, the analytics service, the compute service. I mean, there are a lot of service, container, database. So an easy, depending on the service you want to look at. If you're interested in DevOps, you can see DevOps services here. Identity, you can see them here. Networking, you see different services under different category, and security. So they make it very easy for you to be able to navigate and even learn any service that you're actually interested in. Internet of Things. All right, let's go back to the slide. So we'll look at, all right, so for this, we'll be looking at Azure region, region pair, sovereign region. All right, so Azure actually offers more global region than any cloud service provider. So Azure has, as at last year, provides 60 plus region representing over 140 country, basically. So what is region? When you talk about Azure region, you are talking about a place, an area where it has one or more data center in close proximity. One or more data center in close proximity. For example, now if you look at this now, the region, Microsoft has a data center in South Africa, two of them. So this is a region, right? They have one in Brazil here,
Yeah, man.
then they have in North America, right?
Right.
They have in China. So they actually provide a flexibility and scale to reduce customer latency. So most times, since I'm in Africa, I'm in Nigeria, for example, now, if I want to deploy resources in terms of latency, it is advisable that I deploy my resources in South Africa here.
Africa, yes.
Yeah. But except maybe if the resource is not available in South Africa, then I can now look at, okay, which is actually a closer proximity that I can actually deploy the resource to. So I have to look at because of latency. And for regions, they preserve data residency with a comprehensive compliance offering. Now, there are some organizations that some of their data, key data, cannot reside outside their geographical region. So because of that, like most of our banks and insurance company and fintech, for example, now, why most of them still have their data center is because some of their data, some of their applications cannot, be outside Nigeria because of CBN policies and all that. So the Azure region is actually one of the important things that one has to consider as an Azure solution architect. That okay, for this region, what is actually obtainable for me as an Azure architect? What are the things I can focus on as an Azure architect? So, and Azure is continually expanding, as a service. It helps you to meet both your current and your future business challenges. So Azure actually gives you the freedom to build, manage, and deploy application on a massive global network. So using their favorite tool and so based on your tools and your favorite frameworks, you have them available for you because it keeps growing. So what actually does Azure offers? It helps Azure actually have everything you need to build your next great solution, right? Some of the listers is actually ready for the future. With a continuous innovation from Microsoft support, it supports your development today and your product version tomorrow. So Microsoft is always bringing out stuffs. Like this week now, we had a Microsoft build where they talk about new innovations in Copilot, Copilot, AIs, and all that. So Microsoft is always innovating. And for Azure, you have the opportunity to actually build on your terms. You have the choices. So with commitment to open source and support from all languages and frameworks, you can build how you want to. You can determine how you want to deploy where you want to deploy the applications. Then another thing Azure offers is actually you have the opportunity to operate hybrid seamlessly. You can still have your on-premise infrastructure and the cloud. You can have everything. And Microsoft is ready to actually meet you wherever you are. You can integrate, manage your environment with tools and services designed for hybrid cloud solution. We talked about the Azure Act the last time that helps you for your hybrid interactions. Then you can get security from ground up, which are backed by a team of experts and proactive compliance that is trusted by enterprises, governments, and startups. So Azure has those offerings for you. And if you talk about the Azure region, is available globally, like globally, globally. Availability zones. So this is another thing that you need to actually understand. Where a region is a geographical area on the planet that contains at least one, but potentially multiple data centers that are actually nearby and they are networked together with a low latency network. Azure intelligently they assign and controls the resources within the regions, right, to ensure workloads are appropriately balanced. That's the essence of those regions. And when you deploy resource in Azure, you often need to choose the region where you want the resource to be deployed. Some services like virtual machines, they are only available in certain regions and such, even with specific virtual machine size, especially storage type also. And there are also some global Azure services that don't require you to select a particular region, such as if you talk about the Azure Active Directory, which is currently known as a Microsoft Entra ID now, and also the Azure DNX, for example, now, those are geographically available. So some services are not available geographically. That's when we talk about the availability zones. They are actually like when you talk about availability zone, you're talking about physically separated data center within an Azure region. A region can contain one or more data center, but for availability zone, a physically separated data center within an Azure region, and each availability zone is made up of one or more data center for availability zone. And each of them, they are actually equipped with independent power, cooling, even networking. And is when you're trying to set up availability zone, you are setting up to have an isolation boundary. In case one zone goes down, the other continues to work. And availability zones are connected through high-speed private fiber optics network. So when in availability zones, like for example, now we have these three availability zones now. They are physical data centers that are separated in different area. Let's say there is a disaster in one region and there is maybe earthquake. The data center is down, for example, now because the resources are in availability zone. Automatically, resources are replicated to zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, basically. So the zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3, right? Let's say the zone 1 is down, for example, now. Because there's replication of your resources, and these 2 and 3 are still up, your resources will still be up. So you don't have to worry about, oh, all my data are gone, my business will be impacted, right? So availability zone provide protection against downtime due to data center failure. Sometimes maybe there is a power outage in a particular data center. So because they are in availability zone, right? The other 2 are up or one is even up. Your resources will still be available, right? So we try to define,
The zones,
yeah,
the zones should not be in the same country, right? Be in different
they will
countries.
not be in the same place. They will not be in the same
Okay.
place. They are
Okay.
physically separated. Yeah. So that
Okay.
once one
Okay.
is down in a
If
particular
there's an
country,
issue in one country,
yes, your data, your application are still going to be up,
yeah.
basically. All right. So each data center is equipped with independent power, cooling, and network. So in case there's power in one, the other one is still going to be available for you. Let's see. Okay, region pair. Before we move to region pair, it is actually important to know that to ensure resiliency, a minimum of 3 separate availability zones are supposed to be present in our availability zone to enable for any zone enable region. But not all Azure region currently support availability zone. By default, it is recommended that there should be availability zone of 3 because of resiliency. And for example, now, if you want to use Avlenzo in your apps, for example, now if you want to deploy your apps onto Azure, you want to ensure that your services and data are redundant so that you can protect your information in case of failure. And when you host your infrastructure, setting up your own redundancy require that you create duplicate hardware environments. But Azure helps to make your application highly available through availability zone. So you're not worried about any disaster that can happen and things will run. And you can use the availability zone to run mission critical applications and build high availability to your application's architecture by co-hosting, either you co-locating your compute and storage and networking, even your data resources within an availability zone and the replication in other availability zone. So it replicates from maybe you have you create your applications or your data in this particular zone 1, it replicates across these other zones basically. And you have to keep in mind that it could actually cost you more in duplicating your service. But that resiliency is actually something that's very important because there'll also be data transfer between those zones. And for primary purposes, for VMs, for manage these, for load balancers, SQL database, for example, now Azure Service supports availability zone to fall into three categories. You can have a zonal service, you can have a zonal redundant service, then you can have non-regional service. For a zonal service now, you pin the resource to a specific zone. For example, now a virtual machine, a managed disk or IP address. While for zone redundant service, the platform replicates automatically across zones. For example, now for a zone redundant storage or SQL database. While for a non-regional service, for example, now the services are always available from Azure geographics and are resilient to zone-wide outage. So let's say there is even a zone-wide outage, for example, now let's say in the earlier picture I showed you for South Africa, for example, now you have to in South Africa North and in South Africa West, for
Data
example, now
center.
yes, if there is a zonal wide issue now that the whole Africa something happened to the whole Africa, for example, now
Yeah.
what the non-regional service is going to do that some of the service will still be made available in other places geographically too, so you don't lose anything at all. So you don't lose anything at all. So that's the advantage of the Azure zone in terms of availability, Azure region in terms of the availability zone. Let's talk about the region pair. Now, most Azure regions are paired with another region with the same geographic, like for example now, US, Europe, or Asian. So at least for region pair, they'll be 300 miles away 300 miles away for region pair. Why this allows for replication of resources across a geography that helps you to reduce the likelihood of interruptions because of events such as natural disasters, a civil unrest, a power outage, even physical network outage that affects entire region. For example, if a region is in pair was affected by a natural disaster or a service would automatically fail over to other region in its region. So there's always an automatic replication between region pair. Now, if you look at this now, the North Central US and the South Central, they are region pair. The East and West region pair, the West US and West Central US region pair. So for those region pair
Yeah.
now, it helps with automatic replications of services and prioritize regions recovery in the event of outages. Then updates are rolled out sequentially to minimize downtime. So if Microsoft is rolling out updates in a particular region, the updates will not be rolled to the other region because they have to be sure that each of the region right they are not affected for in case of any outage whatsoever.
Yeah. So if there is a problem now in the two region pairs, there's problem in the two at the same time. So what
Yeah.
happened?
Well, Microsoft tried to ensure that even some of the data are available for you globally, right? But
Okay.
they will not actually mention it. They are backups, right, of those data.
Okay.
They're backups of backups because they're in the business to ensure that their service doesn't go down. And it's also important to know that not all Azure services automatically replicate data or automatically fall back from a failed region to cross-replicate to another region in order for different enable region, for example, now. But in this scenario, recovery and replication must be configured by the customers. So you have the option to configure recovery. You have the option to configure replication, for example. Each of the region pair in Azure, like West US pair with East US, for example, now, because of the peer regions are directly connected and far enough apart to be isolated from regional disaster, you can use them to provide reliable service and data redundancy. Um, Sorry, give me 1 second. I'll be right. Sorry about that. All right. Before we go to, so we have some Azure sovereign region. Before we go into that, let's look at some of the advantages of region pair. So if there is an extensive Azure outage, right? If it occurs in one region out of every pair, so it's actually prioritized to make sure that at least one is restored as quickly as possible for application host in that region pair. So there's an extensive Azure outage, like you asked. Then for planned Azure updates, they are rolled out to peer regions, one region at a time to minimize downtime, like I mentioned. Then data continue to reside within the same geography as its peer, except for region like Brazil South for tax and law enforcement jurisdiction purposes. So for most region peer, the thing actually remains remains there. I don't know if you have further question.
It's clear. Okay.
All right. So let's talk about, we have what we call Azure sovereign regions. Now, the US government is so smart that they don't want data from the US government cannot just be anywhere. They can't be anywhere. So to meet the security and compliance need of the US federal agency, state and local governments, and their solution provider, what Azure does is that there's Microsoft create what called Azure government. Azure government, they're like a separate instance of Azure. They are physically isolated from non-US government deployments, and they are only accessible only to screen authorized personnel. So for those
Okay.
for Microsoft now, they have to create that for US government, like
Yes.
in addition to the regular regions that we have,
Okay.
right? So for example, now you have the US DOD Central, the US Gulf, Virginia, US Gulf, and different regions like that. And most times it's only people that are working in the US government that are aware of these locations, basically.
Maybe all those FBI, CIA, and
Exactly.
co.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the regions are, they are physical. They are also logical network, isolated instances for Azure, for the US government agencies and their partners. So the data centers are actually operated by the screened US personnel, and they have to have additional compliance certifications and all that. And apart from US governments, even the China as well. So Microsoft is actually is a China's first foreign public cloud provider in compliance with the government's regulations, right? Now for China, what Microsoft did is that Microsoft had to partner with a company, VI21 something, right? So that company, VINet, yeah, this is a company here. So for Azure China, they are physically separated inside of Azure Cloud. It is operated by this company is a Chinese company actually, run by China, because there is no data in China that is going out. Data in China does not go out. So Microsoft partner with this company through the permission of the Chinese government, right? So this is actually the company that is running the data center in China, because every data in China must stay within China for compliance regions. All data in China stays in China. So because of that, Amazon cannot, they are not able to penetrate the market in China because they cannot, the data in China cannot just go out. They can't just go out. Okay. All right. Let's look at some Azure resources. Some of them we'll look at when we're navigating the Azure. So talking about the Azure management infrastructure itself. First, now the management infrastructure include the Azure resources, resource group, and subscriptions, then accounts itself. See, you need to actually understand how this work. So for Azure resources, there are components like storage, virtual machines, networks that are available to build cloud solutions. Like talk about the virtual machines, the storage accounts, the virtual networks, the app service, the SQL database functions. So these are different resources that are actually available on Azure. So what is a resource itself? A resource is actually a basic building blocks for Azure, right? So anything you create, you provision, you deploy, etc. Just a moment. Okay, sorry about that. So for I said the resource is actually the building blocks of Azure, and anything you create, you provisions basically is a resource. It could be virtual machines, virtual network, or storage. Now, for each of these resource, if you remember from what I showed you, is always put into a container, and that container is all known as the resource group itself. So when you group the resource together, let me show you quickly. Let me go back to the Azure portal. Now, if I click on all resources, I'm able to see all the resources I have here. All these resources are actually tied to a particular resource that I provision, which was the virtual machines. So because all these resources are working together, it shows me something here. What is the resource group? They are all in is a 900 resource group. So if I click on resource group now, everything I just saw now, right, is inside this resource group, except this network portal, which is always a standalone resource that is created when you create a resource itself. So for a resource group, is like a container you use to manage and aggregate. Let me go back to the slide.
Resources.
Yeah. So you actually use to put like a container for all the resource. So it's a container used to manage and aggregate resources in a single unit. So resources can exist only in one resource group. So when you provision a particular resource, it can only be in the particular. There's not like you want to duplicate the resource to be. So once you provision a resource for a particular, let's say for virtual machines, for example, now we provision a VNet. The VNet stays in the resource group where the virtual machine stays too. You can't say, this VNet, I want to duplicate it and put it in a different resource group. You have to provision a different VNet to be in a different resource group. And resources can exist in different regions, actually. And resources can be moved to different resource group. So if you're going to move a particular resource, so after I created a particular resource and they're all in the same resource group, I can say, okay, I want to move everything. So I can't say I want to move the VNet, leave the virtual machines, or leave the IP or all that. I have to move everything to that
Everything.
particular resource.
Wow.
Yes, they have to move
Wow.
because they work to they're already linked together as one. They're
Together.
like one
Yeah.
entity. Yes. So if I'm going to remove one resource, that means I'm going to start breaking them up, and the particular virtual machine will not even work because it's going to need to speak to a VNet. A VNet is going to need to speak to an IP, and if they're not seeing themselves, they'll not be able to work together basically. So when you create a resource, you're required to place the resource in the resource group. So why a resource group can contain many resources? A single resource can only be in one resource group at a time. Some resources may be moved between resource group, but when you move a resource to a new resource group, it will no longer be associated to that former group. So you can't say I want to duplicate I'm have the same resource in this particular zone. It will not be associated. And resource group can be nested, meaning you can't put a resource group B in a resource group A. So resource group are only stand alone. You can say resource group for IT department, resource group for marketing department, resource group for finance department, right? You can't say I want to put resource
Okay.
group in IT department and put in the resource group for marketing department. It doesn't work like that
Because those
because I
resources
did
work together for to achieve a particular task.
exactly. You can't nest it. You can't nest it that I want to create a group. You can't nest, you can't put them. And resource group, because their work is to provide a convenient way. right? To group resources together. So when you apply an action to your resource group, the action will apply to all the resources within resource group. So for example, now, I don't want people to delete my virtual machines. Maybe we are multiple administrator to a particular subscription, for example, now. I don't want them to delete a particular virtual machines. What I can do is to actually basically, I can create what we call resource lock. I can lock my resource and nobody will be able to, delete that resource. I can prevent it from accidental deletion. Maybe somebody is just playing around, which is actually like a best practice basically. And if you delete a resource group, all the resources will be deleted. If you delete a resource group, every resource. So if I go to that particular resource group where I created the virtual machines, once I delete the resource group, everything under it will be deleted. And there is at the point of creating the virtual machines, we have the option to check, okay, do I want to delete the associated maybe disk storage to these virtual machines, right? Once I delete it, a particular resource, every resources there gets deleted. And also when I grant or deny access to resource
So
group, what
if accidentally one delete one of the resource in the resource group, and as such all the resource group get deleted, can you still create, and you need that resource group, can you still create it, or it's going to
is
be at a
actually
cost?
is actually you can once you delete it, everything you had configured is gone. You have to start afresh again
Wow,
to create it.
wow.
Like for example, now this is my resource group where my virtual machines are NSG and VNet. If I click on delete resource group, so Microsoft even make
Don't
it a
delete
step
it.
ahead. If I click on delete now, it's not delete immediately. Look at what it's going to tell
How
me.
do you want to delete?
Say resource group to be deleted. Now look at it. It says enter resource group name to confirm deletion. That means somebody cannot just say that it's deleted by
Okay,
accident. So that means you must have enter,
okay.
copy this name again, and put it here
Sit there.
before it even delete itself. So even if I put the
Don't
wrong
try it.
name
Oh.
here, it's not, I'm not even deleting. Even if I put the wrong name, it's not going this delete option will be greater for me. Once I put the exact name before, and it's going to tell me that this, so if somebody is telling me that I delete a resource by accident, that means it must have done like two steps. First of
Mhm.
all, click on delete resource group. After clicking on deleting resource group, you now copy the name of the resource group and now come and paste it here
I put it there.
and put it in.
That's not accident.
Yeah, so it's, it's
That's
no
not
more
be
accident.
accidental. That should be
So
deliberate.
exactly. So Microsoft is trying to ensure that security can't just delete. Maybe it's just one click or delete and delete now. That could have been accidental. But after clicking on this, you have the option to even okay to be sure Microsoft wants to be sure that you want to delete resource. Look at it, the following resource go and all dependencies will be permanently deleted. They are gone. So you have to go back to create those resources afresh. All your configurations that you've done, you have to do everything afresh again. Yeah. All right, let's continue. We'll go back to the slide again. So you say application can utilize multiple resource group. Yes. So I can create multiple resource group. Maybe I want to separate, okay, for my databases, maybe I have some AI applications. I can actually create multiple resource group for them. An application can actually use them. So there's not actually like a hard rule on how you can use resource group, right? So you just consider how you set up a resource group to maximize the usefulness for you. And basically for the resource group, it's just for you to be able to easily manage stuffs, basically. So you don't have all your stuffs here and there. Now for even each of those resources, when the virtualization was mentioned, you can actually create those resources even one after the other, basically. So I think that's all. It's just an overview. That's all about resource group. So let's move to Azure subscriptions. Now in Azure, subscriptions are the units of management, billing, and skill. They are the units of management. billing and scale. So similar to how you use a resource group, are actually a way of logically organizing your resources. Subscriptions allow you to logically organize your resource group and facilitate billing. Now, if you look at this diagram, for example, there's actually like, now I have my Azure account, portal.azure, that's my Azure account. It is always advisable you have more than one subscription. You have subscription for your production, you have a subscription for test and development, for example, now. So you know that whenever you need to deploy an application to production, what do? You select the production subscriptions. If you're just testing out, you're not sure yet if this application will meet the standard of your organization. You can deploy in your development environment to deploy it. Then for the testing, you can use a test subscription. Now, for here, we have the billing accounts here. And for the billing account, you can create billing profiles for different things. And note, for billing profile, we have invoice and payment method, which could be your credit card attached to it, right? So you know that for this billing profile, okay, my marketing department, they have this billing profile. So anything that is deployed for them, they have their invoice and they have their own credit card. My IT department, they have their own billing profile. So from their own billing profile, they have access to their invoice sessions, right? Invoice sessions. And from the billing profile, they can have multiple subscriptions. Yeah, they can have multiple subscriptions. So it actually helps you to logically maintain your billings. So you know that, okay, once invoice is coming from the marketing department, you know that you can get all their invoice informations from their own billing profile. So you logically, arrange it. And an Azure subscription provides you with authenticated and authorized access to accounts. I've mentioned that over and over again. Without a subscription, you cannot have access to Azure itself. So an account can have multiple subscriptions, like as you can see from this, but it's only
So
required
sorry,
to have
we
one.
did this multiple subscription now. That means
Yeah,
because you're going to pay Azure service provider now with what?
yes. The reason why it is always
If it is
advisable to have.
software as a service like monthly this thing.
Yes, but you remember Azure is pay as you go, right? It's not like Azure is pay as you go. Anything you're discussing in Azure is
Okay.
either IIS and PaaS, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. So it's majorly pay as
Okay.
you go for Azure. So like for example now, in my
So
in
which one does that software as a service then?
Microsoft 365 is software as a service. Microsoft 365, when you need to use Microsoft Teams, SharePoint,
Okay.
OneDrive,
Okay.
those are
Okay.
software as a service.
Okay.
Yes, those are software as a service.
Okay.
Although we have some part of Azure, like Azure DevOps, for example, now, which is also a software as a service, but the plan is still like a pay as you go plan. So when you deploy, is when you deploy something, right? That you pay. But for Microsoft 365, the billing, the way they structure the billing is monthly or annually. You're either paying monthly and annually. But then what where they make it easier then was that you can cancel your subscription at any time for software as a service. You can cancel it at any time.
Okay.
And what Microsoft would do is that, let's say I paid, today is first, for example, now I paid for the subscription. I only use the subscription for 5 days. Microsoft, and I cancel the subscription after 5 days. Microsoft is going to prorate it. They're going to calculate how much I use for that 5 days and they will refund me the rest
Okay.
again.
That's
But I pay monthly or annually. But I can decide that, okay, I don't want to use the service again. Let me cancel. But if I do not remember to cancel, Microsoft continues to charge every month. That's the subscription one. But for pay as you go, basically, what is happening is that is when the resources are working or I'm using the resources that I'm paying, I can have a virtual machine and shut it down. Like this virtual machine now, since we provisioned it 2 weeks ago, I've not spin it up again. Like I've not run it again. That's why it was only charging me for storage.
okay.
It wasn't charging me because the machine is not running, but because I'm still taking it, I'm still I'm taking a storage in the data center. I'm taking a storage in the data center. That's what they're paying me. That's what they're charging me for the storage. But any other thing, they're not charging me for any other thing. Or the IP that I reserve, they charge me for that as well. All right. So the reason why having multiple subscription so that you can actually logically know that okay, this particular subscription is for this. So after I've in my dev environment, I'm developing the applications, right? As I'm moving to the production, I can delete the instance on the dev environment. I can delete the instance on the dev environment. I don't pay for it again. So it's just the production subscription that will be charged going forward. Now, in the case of multiple subscription, right, for accounts, so you can use different billing models and apply different account access policy. You can use Azure subscription to define boundaries around different Azure products and services, even resources. And there are like two type of boundary. I didn't know. I
Are with
think
you?
my daughter was, yeah, just a moment. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
So there are two. We have the billing boundary and the access control boundary for our Azure. Now for billing boundary, the subscription types determine how an Azure account is built for using Azure. You can create multiple subscriptions for different types of billing requirements. So Azure generates separate billing reports and invoice for each subscription so that you can organize and manage costs as you're setting billing boundaries, right? So for this billing profile, for example, now, these invoices for this for subscription here, for example, for this first subscription, for example, now, for these two now, the invoices will be generated together for these two. Why these invoices will be attached to this billing profile? So I know that if it is my marketing team that is using that particular resource, for example, now they have their billing. The IT team will have their billing too. That's talking about generating separate billing and invoices for different subscription. Why for access control boundary, Azure applies access management policy at the subscription level, and you can create separate subscriptions to reflect different organizational structure. An example is that within a business, you have different departments to which you apply distinct Azure subscription policies. So these billing models allow you to manage and control access to resources that users provision for specific subscriptions. So for access control boundary now, like let me show you, let me go to the Azure portal to show you this. Now, if I go to the home, then go to my subscriptions here, for example, now. Now, in this subscription now, currently, I'm the only person that have access to these subscriptions. If I need to grant somebody an access to this subscription, I have to come to this access control. Yeah. And there are different access level. If I click on add, I can click on add. I can try to add a role assignment or co-administrator because I'm doing all these tenants, I'm also the administrator. Let me go to role so I can show you different access level here. So there's access level by job functions. So depending on the job role, what the person will be doing, I can select, okay, the person is an Azure AI developer, for example, now I can give person I can give the user access to that as that. And I can also come here to grant a privileged administrator role. And for the privileged administrator, there are 5 of them. There is the owner role. This owner role is currently my role, the role I have. That means I can do anything to the subscriptions. I have full access to manage resources, including ability to assign role. Now, this contributor role is just below this owner role. This guy can do everything. The only thing this guy cannot do is what I can do. I can grant somebody else access, but this guy cannot give any other person access to this subscription. Then for user access tool, this user access tool is like it lets me to manage user access to the Azure resources inside our subscriptions. So I just want users to be able to access the subscription. But with this contributor now, this user will be able to actually provision resources based on Azure policies that has been in place, right? So it's
Yeah.
basically applying access management policies basically at subscription levels. So that's that. You have question there?
No, no, no.
All right. Let's move on. Okay. All right. Let's go next. Something that looks like this too, which is management group. So management group basically is talking about the people who are who are privileged to basically manage the Azure environment, right? And for management group, you can include multiple Azure subscriptions. Now, it's at the management level that things are happening. If I go to the Azure portal, search for management group, I'll be able to see, okay, for this management group, which subscription are assigned are, are present in the management group, I'll be able to see them. Okay, for each of the subscription, so it's like an hierarchy, basically like an hierarchy, the management group.
Okay.
So it's the top of the hierarchy, then followed by the subscriptions, then followed by the resource group and the resources inside the resource group.
Very good.
So similar to actually the resource group and to separate resource from functional assets, you might want to create like maybe additional subscription, like we mentioned, for environment, even for organization structure. So the final piece for there is actually the management group. Resources are gathered into resource group and resource group are gathered into subscriptions. Subscriptions are gathered into management group. So if you're just starting out, so you see the hierarchy is from management group to subscriptions to resource group and to resources. So a
So
way to if
like multiple subscriptions make up a management group.
so a management group can have multiple subscriptions, right? But one thing is
Or
that
if it is one subscription, if it is one subscription, it's a
one subscription
management
can be
group.
in yes. So management group is like at the top of the hierarchy. So from the management group, let me jump back to the Azure portal real quick. So if I search for management group here, so because I'm in a default directory, it gives me this, the tenant group, right? So inside it, it tells me that I have subscriptions. You understand? And I can have multiple subscriptions if I had. Now, if you notice, the management group has its own ID, while the subscription has its own ID as well. If I have multiple subscription here, it will tell me. And for this management group, I can even create subgroup under it. If I click on create here, I can create subgroups under it. Like can be in the hierarchy of 5 actually. The management group can actually be in hierarchy of 5, right? Then inside the subscription now, I
Before a
can now
subscription
go
and
further
provide
to see the resource groups under it.
resources group.
Yes,
That's the
from
resource
inside the resource group, I'll be able to see the resources
group.
there and the
That's
applications
okay.
that we have there. So in terms of hierarchy, the first thing is a management group, basically. Then subscriptions inherit conditions applied to management group. So if I create an Azure policies here at this management group level, all the subscriptions under it will inherit the policy because
So
it's like the
I think
mod, it's like the model of
I think
yes,
I think the resource group and the resources will also be affected, right?
exactly. So anything the subscription inherits, resource group inherits too. Anything resource inherits, the resource group inherits, resources will also inherit it also.
Yeah.
And management group, you have to know it can include multiple subscriptions, basically. And it can support, it's like a tree, it can support up to 6 level of depth. So for each of the, I'm trying to see if I have a picture. 1 second. Mm, I have a picture which I can copy it. So like, let me see. Let me share this. You can see. Let me quickly show you the hierarchy. Now, if you can see here, there is a roots resource management group here. You can see my screen.
I can
There's a
see.
roots. Now, under this roots, which is the highest one, so now created different. So I want to apply policy for human resource, IT, marketing. So you can notice here, there's also a subscription attached to management group. So management group can have subscription, can also have other subgroups under it, and it can be up to 5 layers. You can see from IT now, IT has another one called production here. Therefore, production, maybe they have different branches. There's a geo region 1, there's another geo region 2. Then this region has their subscriptions. So this hierarchy can be up to 6, right? So removing the root 1, the root management group, it can be up to 5. If you remove the root 1, so up to 5, and you can have subscriptions and all that. So depending, like human resource now, under the management group, they have the development and test subscriptions. Then they have another management group for applications here. Why the marketing group here has its subscription, which are the free trial subscriptions. Let's proceed. All right. All right. Okay. This is an exercise. I think we've done this before. To create a virtual machines and monitor the resource, you can create one again. So you can just see how we monitor the resource creation. Okay, let's quickly. So we go home here. So I told you there are various ways. Because I've already accessed virtual machines, I can click on virtual machines. I'll be able to see. If I search for it also, I'll see it here. If I also click on create a resource here as well. So this take me to a page. I can select different resources. Do I want to create virtual machines, web applications, Windows servers? So I can click on create this virtual machines. So I'm just going to, so I can either use the same resource group or create a new resource group. Let me call this Linux RG. Really, the virtual machines. You can just put any name. So no space in between. Okay, it's underscore there. It only contains, okay, hyphen instead. So it guides on what you can do, then the region I want it to be. So we mentioned availability zone. If you remember, availability zone. Now the first virtual machine we created, we didn't use zone. We use no infrastructure redundancy. That means what it means that the region where I've provisioned the virtual machines, that is the only region the virtual machines will be. You get it now. Now, if I click on this, I want to use availability. So we're still going to talk about skill set and availability sets. So I click on availability zones here now. Now it gives me the option that you can select multiple zones. So how many zones do I want? If you remember, it is better if that particular region has 3 zones. So just select all the 3 zones. Right. So based on your zone selection, we'll place 3 virtual machines, right? One in each selected zone. You may want to create this resource as a virtual machine. So I'm going to explain the difference between virtual machine skill sets. So it's always advisable that once you're creating the virtual machines and you want to use the function of the availability zones, you use a virtual machine skill set. Just to explain everything we've done. Then for security type, you can select different option, confidential virtual machines, which is it's a fast, high confidential, trusted, or standard. So basic level. So the image here, I want to use the Linux Ubuntu server, so I can leave that there. I can decide to see all images here. If I want to create. Then for the size, so you see, so it gives you an error here. So I told you not all availability zones are available in all regions. So then the site is not available. So I have to click on select all size to see available size. Let me go to the B series. Let me select this if it's going to be available. Okay, so that is available for me. Yeah, so you go ahead. So do I want to use SSH public key? So because the Linux OS, that's why if I change to Windows now, it's going to give me a different option. Let me use a Windows Server 2016, for example. So you see the option it brought for me, username, password, and confirm password. But because the image here that was selected was Ubuntu server, which is a Linux system, so you can only SSH through it or use password. So it gives me the option to select SSH public source. That wants to generate new key pair and all that. The name of the user, I can select, change the name based on what I want. Then the key pair name that I want to use, I can just put in a key pair name there. Then click on review and create, or otherwise I can proceed to Dix here. So for Dix here, I have the option to select, okay, which type of Dix do I want to use from the image size. I can select different size of Dix I want here for the machine, 32 gig, 64 gig, 128, right? Then do I want it to be a standard SSD, a premium, which is for production, or HDD? This one will be slow anyway. Then it's own redundant storage, premium, and all that. So you see, this is for data to replicate in 3 zones because I'm using the availability zones. Then for key management as well. So I have the option to either select platform manage key. So these are things I will not go into for now. The next part is on networking, where I have the option to. So these are the configuration I get to do myself. If you remember,
Yeah.
when we talk about share responsibility. So these are my own responsibility. I want to, okay, do I want to use the same virtual VNet or I want to create my own VNet? I have the option. Do I want to use a subnet or I want to, so it's a default subnet that comes with the whichever VNet has been selected. Then the public IP as well. Do I want to use public IP or I want to select none? The NIC network security group, they want to use advanced. Then for the inbound ports, they want to use selected ports. I'm going to select later under here. I want to select a port or I don't want to use any port at all. So these are my own in terms of share responsibility model. Do I want the NIC to be deleted when the virtual machine is deleted? So I can select this. So anytime I delete the virtual machines, even this also be deleted. So because I'm using availability zones now, it gives me the option of load balancing, to balance traffic across it. So they want to use an Azure load balancer or an application gateway for web traffic load balancer, right? Then they want to create a load balancer. So if I don't have a load balancer, I can create a load balancer, right? They want to be public, internal, the protocols, right? So these are my own under the share responsibility models. These are the things I get to configure myself. Then if you go next, under management, we're going to see, okay, so it tells me for Microsoft Defender for Cloud, my subscription is protected under the cloud security posture management in the free plan. Do I want to be able to log in into the machine with my Microsoft Entra ID account? I have the option to select it. So this was the auto shutdown I was mentioning in management. So let's say after 8 p.m. every day, I want the virtual machine to shut down. I close by 5 p.m. I might forget. And if I leave it on over the night, I'll be incurring costs. So that's where the auto shutdown is good. So you can select the time you want to shut down. Do you want to receive a notification? Yes. So it's going to send you an email 30 minutes before it's shut down that this virtual machine. So in case you don't want it to shut down, maybe you're still doing one or two things. Do I want to enable backup? Can select this option to enable backup. Then for OS updates, then if I want reboot settings, I can do that. Then monitoring here, that's another thing. So they want to enable recommended alert true for it. For in terms of diagnostics, they want to enable managed storage accounts or custom storage accounts. Then they want to enable the OS guest diagnostics. Then they want to enable application health monitoring. So if there are applications on the virtual machines, I can do that under monitoring. Then we have the advanced tabs here that talks about um, VM applications, custom data, custom units, talks about the also these are just advanced stuff. If you want to, so I advise people not to select this in case they don't know what they're doing.
For now.
Then then tags. So sometimes it's always advisable to tag your resource, right? So it has selected this resource. You want to put a name, the value of the tags and all that. Then once everything is good, you're sure, you click on review and create. So if there's any other problem, I didn't do any settings. So it tells you that I have some issues in terms of validation. So I have to review this. So once it's an issue, it's going to validate if you're good to go in provisioning it. But because I didn't do some things on that basis, so it's going to point out those things for me. So this is one of the error. This is another error. If I go to networking also, this is one error too. I've not selected any ports here. So this is another error. Then this also, I've not created a load balancer. So I didn't want to do all those things, but just to show you how the whole resource goes. So once everything is checked out, you just be able to, this create option will be enabled. You create it and the whole thing. So let me just change this to, let me change this to this. So you can see how the resource exploration, I'm going to delete it after the class. So let me put a username. Password. Okay, all good, all good. Let me check networking. What was it asking? Select that. Change gateway. So let me just select none for this now so I can review and create. So any resource provision, you start paying for those resources as well too. So if I create a load balancer as well, it's going to charge me for it.
Okay.
Okay, so everything is good. So it tells me validation pass. So once you click on create here now, you start seeing things that will be created for you. It's going to tell me initializing deployment.
In deployment.
Mm. So start seeing how it's creating each of those things. So deployment is in progress. So you start
Yeah.
seeing things that are going to be deploying one after the other. So you don't need to do anything. You just sit and relax. You start seeing those resource, the type, you tell you the status. So if there's any resource failure as well, it's going to tell you the status as well. So that's created a network interface, a VNet, network security group. So it's checking it for you. It's creating the virtual machines.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for other resources, okay? So that's created the virtual machines here. So it's done. So within minutes, you have your virtual machine hub. So you see everything it's created for you. So even creates based on things that you've scheduled, it's create everything for you. So it give you some suggestions to set up or to shut down, monitor VM health, performance dependence, run script inside VM. So it gives you some suggestions. So we go to click on go to resource, for example, now. So to take you into the virtual machines that I just created. So here again, you can do a lot of configuration. Like for example, I can create assets now. Who should have access? You can assign this to users in your organizations, right? You can check tags. From here, you can see different things about the properties, about the virtual machines. If you go under monitoring, it tell you what is happening under monitoring, tell you some capabilities, what are the things that are available, things that you can configure for the machines. You can configure Azure policies. You can configure Windows Admin Center where you have an administrator that can configure Hi, sorry, my internet knocked me
Yeah,
out.
sorry.
Okay. All right. So we'll be running up there for today. So next week
Okay.
we'll pick it up next week, talking about compute and network next week. So we understand, we'll go deep into the Azure portal to try to understand different compute resources that we have and different network resources we have and how organization use them at the high level.
Okay. I will also explore the portal since today, tomorrow.
Mm. Once you need, if you need anything, maybe I need, if you don't have access to the subscription, just let me know. I can create a student access for you to be able to access.
Okay. No problem. Thank you very,
Uh,
very much for today.
thank, thank you so much.
So much, I so much
Yeah,
appreciate your effort every time. I
you're
appreciate it.
welcome. You're
No
welcome.
problem.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, you too, sir. Regards to
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
Bye bye, sir. So don't forget to send the